I never thought it would come to this. If you asked me a year ago, a month ago, even a week ago, I would have laughed. I would have told you that I was untouchable, that men like me didn't just disappear. We shaped the world, we made the rules. But now, as I sit here in the dimly lit room, staring at the glass of expensive wine in front of me, I feel something I haven't felt in decades. Doubt, a creeping sensation, like a whisper in the back of my mind, telling me that I was never really in control. I just didn't realize it until now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss new stories. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, it really helps. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss. They call me Lazarus Montenegro, but my associates call me Lucky. A cruel irony, considering the circumstances. For the past 30 years, I've walked among the elite, the ones who decide which countries rise and fall, which crises will dominate the headlines, which leaders will be sacrificed for the illusion of democracy. I was never a politician, never one of those desperate fools who think power comes from elections or public approval. No, real power isn't on television, it isn't in the parliaments or the White House. It's in the meetings no one hears about, the agreements that never make it to the history books. The ones we draft behind closed doors, signed in blood and bound by silence. I was good at what I did. Numbers, finance, the silent shifting of wealth that determines the fate of nations. While the public argued about policies and presidents, I was playing a different game, moving money in ways that most couldn't comprehend, ensuring that those who truly mattered remained untouchable. I was a ghost in the system, the architect of a future no one had voted for. And yet, they lived in it without question. I told myself that I was one of them, part of the inner circle, but now I realize how naive that was. The invitation arrived 2 nights ago, a message delivered in the oldest way possible. A handwritten letter, sealed with wax. It was simple, direct. A meeting, an exclusive gathering of the ones who sat even higher than I did. No location was given, only instructions to follow a driver who would arrive precisely at midnight. At first I was flattered. I had spent my life clawing my way up this invisible hierarchy, earning my place among the untouchables. But the deeper part of me, the part I had trained myself to ignore, felt something else. Not pride, not excitement. Fear. Now, sitting in this dimly lit hall, I realize why. The air is thick with something I can't define. Not just the scent of old leather and expensive cigars, but something deeper, something ancient. The men and women around me, billionaires, kings without crowns, the true architects of the modern world, are silent. There is no chatter, no idle boasting, only eyes, watching, calculating, and at the head of the table, seated in a chair that looks as if it belongs in a cathedral rather than a private estate, is someone I've never seen before. That alone is strange. I know them all, or at least I thought I did. But this man, tall, thin, his face obscured by the flickering candlelight, radiates something unnatural. The others sit with perfect posture, their hands folded, waiting. No one speaks until he does. When he finally does, his voice is smooth, unhurried. "Lazarus Montenegro," he says, as if tasting my name, as if testing its weight. "You have done well. You have served faithfully." The way he says it makes my skin crawl, not because of the words, but because of the way they sound final. As if my role has ended. I glance at the others, searching for reassurance, but find none. Just blank faces, watching, studying, waiting. The man gestures toward the glass in front of me. Wine, deep red, reflecting the dim light like freshly spilled blood. "Drink," he says. And though his tone is gentle, I understand that this is not a request. A part of me screams to run, to stand up, to leave, to disappear before it's too late. But I don't, because I understand, finally, the truth I have refused to acknowledge for so long. I was never one of them. I was never in control. I was a servant, a pawn. And now, my usefulness is ended. I lift the glass. My hands do not shake. If this is my end, I will not give them the satisfaction of fear. The liquid is warm as it slides down my throat, and for a moment, nothing happens. Then, The room begins to shift. The faces around me blur, melting into the darkness. My breath catches. My vision distorts. The last thing I hear before the world collapses around me is a whisper, soft and mocking. "Welcome to the truth, Lucky." The moment the liquid touches my throat, I know something is wrong. The taste is rich, velvety, laced with the kind of aged perfection that only the wealthiest can afford. Yet, beneath it, there is something else, something metallic, something that lingers like a whisper of poison. My instinct screams at me to spit it out, but I don't. I swallow, locking eyes with the man at the head of the table. He is watching me, the faintest trace of amusement curling at the corners of his mouth, and that is when I realize this was never a meeting. This was a ceremony. And clearly, this needless ceremony must be a conflict. I feel a serious flag approaching the top of anticipation. The room begins to tilt, the flickering candlelight stretching and warping, casting elongated shadows that seem to breathe against the walls. My heart pounds, but not with fear. No, this is something else, a foreign rhythm, an unnatural drumbeat reverberating through my ribs as if something inside me is trying to claw its way out. I reach for the table, but my fingers barely graze the polished wood before my limbs go weak. The faces around me blur, distort, their features shifting into something inhuman. My breath comes in short, ragged gasps, my lungs failing to obey, and I understand with cold certainty that this is it. This is how they dispose of those who have outlived their purpose. I try to stand, but my legs betray me. My body convulses, the chair beneath me scraping against the marble floor as I collapse. The world spins in slow, agonizing rotations, my pulse hammering in my ears, deafening, drowning out everything except the growing, unbearable weight pressing down on my chest. I want to scream, to demand answers, to rage against the betrayal. But my voice has been stolen. Someone is speaking, their voice a low murmur in a language I do not recognize. The words slither through the air, thick with something ancient, something that makes the very bones in my body ache with understanding. This was never about power. It was never about control. It was about something far older, something I was never meant to see. A hand touches my shoulder, ice cold, and I am being lifted, no, dragged. My vision flickers, consciousness slipping like sand through my fingers, and in the haze I see the others rising from their seats, silent, unmoving, their eyes empty. They are not watching me with pity, nor with amusement. They are watching with expectation. The darkness swallows me whole. I wake to silence, a vast, consuming silence so thick it feels like a living thing pressing against my skin. My body is weightless, suspended in something that is neither air nor water, but a void so complete that it strips away everything. Sensation, thought, time itself. I cannot tell if I am standing, lying down, or floating. My limbs do not respond. My breath does not form, yet I know I am still here. A sound breaks the nothingness, a low, rhythmic pulse, like the slow, deliberate beating of a colossal heart. It echoes, vibrating through my very being, and with it comes a presence. I cannot see it, but I feel it, watching, waiting. Then, a voice not spoken, but felt, threading through the marrow of my bones, cold and knowing. "You were never one of them." The words unravel something inside me. Something buried beneath decades of illusion. I want to deny it, to fight against it, but I cannot, because I know, deep down, that it is true. I had spent my life believing I was at the pinnacle of power, that I was part of the unseen hand that shaped history, but I was nothing more than a servant, a piece on a board I never even knew existed. Shapes begin to form in the darkness. Indistinct at first, shifting like smoke, but then they solidify, revealing something that freezes the last remnants of my breath. Figures, towering, featureless figures, their bodies made of shadows and void, their eyes, if they can even be called that, pulsing with a sickly golden glow. They do not move, yet their presence is suffocating, pressing down on me with the weight of eternity. One of them steps forward, and though it has no face, I feel its gaze pierce through every layer of my existence. It does not speak, but suddenly I understand. I see. Memories that are not mine flood my mind, overwhelming, burning. A history that predates kings and empires, stretching back beyond the birth of civilization itself. The architects of the world, the ones who have always ruled from behind the veil, not men, not gods, but something else. Something that feeds, that thrives on obedience, that demands sacrifice. And I was their pawn. I scream, but no sound escapes. The figures remain motionless, their judgment absolute. Then the void shifts, the silence cracking apart, and I feel myself being pulled downward. Gravity returns in a violent, crushing force, yanking me back into something cold, something solid. I wake to pain, blinding, searing pain that rips through every nerve in my body. My lungs convulse, dragging in air like a man drowning. A cacophony of voices erupts around me, hurried, urgent. Blurred figures in white coats, the scent of antiseptic, the mechanical beep of a heart monitor. A hospital. I am back. But I know, as I stare at the ceiling, my body trembling with the echoes of something far beyond human comprehension, that nothing will ever be the same. There is no time here, no sense of before or after, only existence, stretched thin and fragile like a thread caught in an invisible wind. I do not know how long I have been here. Seconds? Centuries? The concept slips through my fingers like water, irrelevant in this place where the only certainty is the presence looming over me. I am not alone. At first, I see nothing but endless black, a void so deep it feels alive, breathing in slow, measured pulses. Then, shapes emerge from the darkness. Not solid, not entirely real, but shifting, flickering, towering over me like ancient monoliths. Their forms are undefined, more suggestion than substance, yet their eyes, if they can be called that, burn with a golden radiance that pierces through every layer of my being. I cannot look away. Their gaze strips me down to something raw and exposed, reducing me to the core of who I am. No title, no wealth, no power, just me. Then comes the voice. It is not spoken in words, not carried by air or vibration, but it is there, resonating inside me, filling the emptiness with something vast and incomprehensible. You were weighed. The words unravel me. You were measured. The air grows heavy, pressing against my chest, suffocating. And you were found wanting. I want to speak, to demand answers, but the weight of their presence crushes the words before they can form. Instead, the void shifts again, and suddenly I am standing in front of something impossible, a mirror, stretching infinitely in all directions, reflecting not my physical form, but something deeper. My life, my choices. Every moment, every decision, every betrayal. The images are not memories. They are living things, flickering and reshaping as I watch, forcing me to relive each sin not as a distant past, but as something immediate, something happening now. I see myself as a young man, ambitious, ruthless, stepping over those who trusted me, justifying every action with the belief that I was playing a greater game. I see the deals, the whispered conversations in dark rooms, the signatures that condemned thousands without a second thought. I see the moments when I could have chosen differently, the split seconds when I felt the flicker of doubt, only to smother it under the weight of greed, of ego, of power. Then I see the faces, not nameless casualties of economic shifts and political maneuvers, but real people. Men, women, children, lives I had touched without ever knowing their names. A man whose small business crumbled under a policy I orchestrated. A woman who lost her home when the market I manipulated collapsed. A child who never grew up because his parents were casualties of a war I helped fund. Their eyes meet mine, not with anger, not with hatred, but with something far worse. Recognition. I stagger back, but there is no escape. The mirror holds me, binding me to the weight of what I have done. I want to argue, to explain that I was just a player in a system older and greater than myself, that the machine would have moved with or without me. But the mirror does not care for justifications. It only shows the truth. And the truth is simple. I was never a mastermind. I was never in control. I was a tool, a willing instrument in the hands of something greater and darker than I could comprehend. The figures behind me watch in silence. There is no anger in them, no hatred, only judgment. Not a punishment, not a sentence, but an undeniable, irrefutable assessment. You believed yourself powerful, the voice says again, echoing through my bones, yet you had no power over yourself. The weight of the words shatters something inside me, a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. The mirror fractures. The void implodes. And I fall. I am falling, but there is no end. No bottom, no ground, no impact. Just the sensation of descent, as if gravity itself has been stripped of its purpose, pulling me through an abyss that is not space, not air, not anything that belongs to the world I once knew. The remnants of the shattered mirror swirl around me, fragments of my own existence reflecting flashes of my life. Faces, decisions, betrayals. Before? Vanishing into the nothingness below. I do not scream. There is no sound here. Only the oppressive silence of something ancient, something waiting. Then, without warning, I stop. Not gradually, not as if slowing down, but instantly, as if I was never falling at all. My body remains weightless, but I am no longer in the abyss. The darkness peels away, revealing a vast, endless chamber, its walls made not of stone or metal, but of something shifting, something alive, pulsing with a faint, sickly glow. The architecture is impossible, defying logic, with arches that stretch into infinity and columns that twist upon themselves like living serpents. The air is thick, oppressive, heavy, with an unseen force pressing down on me, making my very thoughts feel sluggish, as if I am trespassing in a place I was never meant to see. And then I see them. At first they appear as shadows, figures standing at the edges of my vision, neither moving nor still, their forms shifting in ways my mind cannot fully grasp. They are not human, not entirely, too tall, too slender, their limbs elongated beyond natural proportions, their faces obscured, featureless, yet radiating an intelligence that is beyond comprehension. They do not speak, yet I feel their words coiling inside my skull like whispers woven into my very thoughts. You have seen the illusion, now you will see the architects. A sound reverberates through the chamber, not a voice, but something deeper, something that bypasses my ears and sinks directly into the marrow of my bones. The figures move, not with steps, but with a flowing, seamless motion, as if gliding through existence itself. They circle me, watching, judging, their presence drowning out every instinct I have ever known. I feel stripped, exposed, like a trespasser in the domain of something beyond gods and demons, something that has existed since before the first breath of humanity. One of them steps forward, its form shifting, molding itself into something more familiar. Almost human, but not quite. The proportions are wrong, the movements too smooth, too deliberate, as if it is mimicking the idea of humanity rather than embodying it. When it speaks, its voice is neither male nor female, neither loud nor soft, but an amalgamation of countless voices layered upon one another, a chorus of whispers converging into a single statement. You believed you were in control. The words strike like a blade, and I understand, with absolute clarity, that these beings do not ask. They do not debate, they do not need answers, because they already know. You played the game, another voice joins the first, emanating from a second figure, identical to the first in its shifting, impossible form. You moved the pieces, believing yourself the master. A third voice. But you were only ever the board upon which the game was played. The words unravel something deep within me, something I had spent a lifetime fortifying. I had always believed in control, in structure, in power. I had built an empire within an empire, manipulating wealth, politics, war itself, believing I was among those who pulled the strings of the world. But now, standing before these beings, I see the truth. The world was never mine to shape. The true architects had always been above, unseen, weaving their influence through history, through civilization, through men like me who thought they were the ones in charge. I force myself to speak, though my voice is a fragile thing in this vast chamber. Who are you? The question is meaningless, and I know it before the words even leave my lips. They do not answer, not with words. Instead, they show me. The chamber shifts, and suddenly I am no longer there. I am everywhere. My mind expands, stretched across time, across realities, witnessing glimpses of history I was never meant to see. Ancient kings kneeling before unseen masters, civilizations rising and falling under the guidance of forces that were never recorded in history books, wars that were not fought for land or power but for something far older, something feeding on the chaos, shaping humanity not for progress but for purpose. Something I still cannot fully comprehend. I see the temples, the rituals, the sacrifices made in the name of gods that never existed, only reflections of these beings, avatars of their design. I see the rulers, the emperors, the presidents, all believing they were making choices, forging paths, never realizing they were simply fulfilling a blueprint written long before they were born. And then I see myself, my entire life, every decision, every moment of ambition, every betrayal, every sacrifice I made to climb the invisible hierarchy, all of it orchestrated, all of it leading to this, to standing here, to knowing. The visions collapse, and I am back in the chamber, gasping, trembling. The figures watch, unmoving, as the weight of revelation crushes me from within. You were given the illusion of power, one of them intones, and you embraced it. You served without knowing, another adds, and so you were useful. It paused. The glow in their eyes, if they even have eyes, intensifies, and for the first time I feel something new radiating from them. Not indifference, not judgment, something worse. Expectation. The tallest figure steps closer, and though it does not touch me, I feel its presence sinking into my very soul. Now you know, it says, and the finality of those words chills me to my core. And now you must choose. The chamber begins to dissolve, unraveling like threads pulled from a tapestry, and I realize, too late, that knowing was never the end. It was only ever the beginning. The illusion was perfect, a masterpiece woven through centuries, through civilizations, through the very fabric of human existence. I had believed in power. I had believed in control. But as I stand in this place, staring into the shifting forms of those who have always been above it all, I realize that everything, the wars, the governments, the economies, the revolutions, was nothing more than an intricate play designed to keep humanity blind, and I was one of its most devoted actors. I see it now, laid bare before me as if the veil has been ripped from my eyes. The game was never about wealth or influence. It was never about the struggle between nations or ideologies. Those were distractions, diversions carefully crafted to keep the world occupied while the real work was done behind the scenes. While these entities, these architects of reality, moved unseen, feeding off the cycles of chaos and order, bending human ambition to their design. You thought you were one of us, one of them says, though it does not speak in the way I once understood speech. The words are simply there, unfolding within me as though they had always existed. You thought you had risen to the level of the architects, that you had glimpsed the machinery beneath the world, but you saw only what you were meant to see. Another figure shifts, its elongated form flickering in and out of perception. Your kind has always believed that power belongs to those who take it, that control is won through war, through wealth, through influence. And yet, all of it was given to you, handed down like a script, a role in a performance far older than you can comprehend. The weight of it crashes over me like a tidal wave. My entire life, the deals, the betrayals, the careful navigation of corridors unseen by the ordinary world, was not the result of my own cunning, but of their will. The institutions I had helped fortify, the systems I believed I had mastered, were nothing more than mechanisms of control designed to keep humanity moving in predictable patterns, repeating cycles of collapse and rebirth, always returning to the same fundamental truths, because that was what sustained them. Not money, not politics, not faith, but the endless, unconscious submission of the masses to an illusion they would never question. My voice is raw, broken, the question not one of defiance but of desperation. Why allow us to think we have control if it is all a lie? The tallest of them steps forward, the space around it warping like a ripple in a pond. Because belief is the strongest chain of all. A man who knows he is a slave will fight to be free, but a man who believes himself free will never see the walls of his prison. I feel sick. My mind strains against the sheer enormity of what I am being shown, trying to reject it, trying to find a flaw in the design, but there is none. It is perfect. You maintained the illusion, another voice speaks. You built structures upon foundations you never questioned. You ensured that those beneath you remained unaware, content in their artificial struggles, never looking beyond the veil. That is why you were allowed to rise, because you played your part well. I try to step back, but there is no ground, no direction, only the oppressive presence of the beings around me, their judgment neither cruel nor merciful, simply absolute. Then why show me this, I demand? If my purpose was to remain blind, why let me see? A silence follows, vast and suffocating. Then the answer comes, and it is worse than anything I have heard before. Because the cycle is ending. A fissure of something primal, something beyond fear cracks through my chest. The cycle, the endless repetition of control, destruction, and rebirth. Something has changed. Something is shifting. They let me rise because they needed me to uphold the system, and now they have let me see because the system is no longer necessary. What happens next? The words barely escape my lips. For the first time, I feel something new radiating from them. Not detachment, not calculation, but inevitability. The world will forget what it was, one of them says, and become what it was always meant to be. I see it then, visions rushing through my mind like a storm of unraveling time. The collapse of the current order, not through war, not through revolt, but through something deeper, something orchestrated. The slow dismantling of what humanity has built, replaced by something else, something new. I see people looking up at the sky, their eyes filled with wonder and terror as the first signs appear. I see governments struggling to maintain the illusion, failing, crumbling under the weight of forces they cannot name. I see cities abandoned, swallowed by silence, their purpose fulfilled. I see those who resist, those who refuse to let go of the old world. And I see what happens to them. You will return, the final voice says, a statement, not a choice. And you will carry this knowledge with you. But they will not listen, not yet. They never do. The chamber around me begins to collapse, the entities fading, withdrawing into the unseen places from which they have always watched. The final words echo in my skull as the darkness takes me once more. The architects remain, the game is over, the end begins. I am standing at the threshold of something beyond comprehension. The chamber dissolves around me, the towering figures retreating into the shadows, their voices still echoing in the depths of my mind. I do not know if I am falling again, or if I am simply being pulled, drawn toward a conclusion that was decided long before I ever set foot in this place. The weight of their final words presses down on me. The game is over. The end begins. Then, for the first time since my death, if that is what this is, I feel something different. A presence. Not like them, not vast and consuming, not woven into the fabric of reality itself. This is something smaller, quieter, but no less powerful. It is waiting for me. The darkness fractures, and suddenly I am somewhere else. It is neither the void nor the chamber. It is something in between. The air is heavy with silence, but it is not empty. Shapes flicker at the edges of my vision, things I cannot quite perceive, and yet I know they are there, watching. A voice, calm, steady, undeniably human, breaks the stillness. You have seen the truth. I turn, and there he is. A man, or something wearing the shape of one. He is neither young nor old, dressed in simple, unremarkable clothing, but there is something in his eyes, something vast, something knowing. He is not like the architects. He is something else. They showed you what you wanted to see, he continues, stepping closer. They let you believe you were unraveling a mystery when, in reality, they were simply guiding you toward the role they needed you to play. A cold realization creeps through me. They said the game was over. The man nods. For them, yes, but not for you. I want to speak, to demand answers, but I already know what he is going to say. The images they burned into my mind were not warnings, they were instructions. They did not show me the fall of the world to prepare me. They showed me so that I would carry it forward. They will send you back, the man says, and you will think you are free, but you won't be. You will be a harbinger, an instrument of the new order. Everything you do, every warning you try to give, will only serve their design. The collapse will happen because you will help them make it happen. I stagger back, shaking my head. No, you saw the signs, he continues, his voice patient but unwavering. You saw the cities falling silent, the people looking up at the sky, the unraveling of the old world. Tell me, Lazarus, when you return, will you stay silent, or will you try to warn them? The answer is immediate, instinctive. Of course I will warn them. And that, the man says, is exactly what they want. The room, or whatever this place is, seems to contract around me. My pulse pounds in my ears. Every word rings with undeniable truth. If I return and speak, if I try to expose what I have seen, it will only accelerate the collapse. Those who listen will become afraid. Fear will turn to chaos. Chaos will turn to destruction, and the architects will not need to lift a finger. They will simply watch as the world reshapes itself in the image they have already chosen. Then what am I supposed to do? I demand. If warning them plays into their hands, if silence is submission, then what choice is left? The man's expression softens. There is always a choice, but it will not be easy. He raises his hand, and for the first time, I see what lies behind him. A path, stretching into the unknown, illuminated by something I cannot describe. It is not light in the way I have always understood it. It is not brightness or warmth. It is something deeper, something that reaches into the core of what I am and calls to a part of me I have long forgotten. This path leads beyond their reach, the man says. Beyond the cycle, beyond the illusion. But if you take it, you will never return. Not to the world you knew, not to the life you lived. I look back. Behind me, the darkness stirs. I know what waits there. The inevitability of returning, of playing my part, of being used as I always have been. But ahead, the unknown, something different, something free. The man watches me, silent, offering no further guidance. Because this, I realize, is the only moment that has ever truly belonged to me. For the first time in my existence, I must choose. I wake with a breath so sharp it feels like drowning. My body convulses, lungs dragging in air like they've never done it before. There is a blinding white light above me. Too bright, too sterile. A rhythmic beeping echoes in my ears, steady, methodical. The scent of antiseptic clings to the air. I know this place. A hospital. Reality, but it doesn't feel real. I try to move, but my limbs are heavy, sluggish, as if my body has forgotten how to function. My vision sharpens, and I see them. Doctors, nurses, a figure standing at the edge of the room, arms crossed, unreadable. My mind is slow, struggling to process. How long have I been here? How did I get back? A nurse leans over me, speaking words I can barely grasp, something about a cardiac arrest. A miracle. I was gone for minutes, yet here I am, alive. But they don't understand. Minutes, it wasn't minutes, it was lifetimes. It was something beyond time, beyond anything they could ever comprehend. I try to speak, but my throat is raw, my voice a rasped whisper. No one notices. They are too busy checking my vitals, scribbling notes, marveling at the impossible. I close my eyes, but behind them I see the chamber, the figures, the choice. The knowledge of what I was meant to do, of what they expected me to do. The realization that even now, they are watching. The world outside this hospital has not changed, but I know what is coming. I have seen the unraveling, the collapse. I have seen the fear that will spread, the way the architects will use it, mold it, turn it into the very weapon that reshapes everything. And I know that if I speak, if I try to warn them, I will be playing directly into their hands. The nurse asks me something, but I barely hear her. I am staring at my reflection in the window across the room. The face looking back is mine, but it is not the same. There is something in my eyes that was never there before. Understanding. A terrible, suffocating understanding. I was sent back for a reason. The question is, whose reason? Theirs? Or something else? I turn my head, looking directly at the figure still standing in the corner of the room. He is not a doctor. He has not moved, not spoken. But he is watching, waiting. A confirmation that I was never free. That they will always be there, in the periphery, ensuring the game continues. I close my eyes again, exhaling slowly. They expect me to speak. They expect me to warn. They expect me to set the collapse in motion. So what happens if I don't? I open my eyes and look at you. Yes, you, the one reading this, because now you have a choice too. Ignore this, dismiss it as a story, a delusion, a hallucination of a dying man. Or listen. Not to me, not to the words, but to the feeling twisting in your gut right now. Something is coming. The question is, when it does, will you even realize it?